The message came at midnight, Earth time. Dr. Yoon Hyera was sleeping in her small room on Axiom Prime when her communication device screamed to life. She grabbed it with shaking hands and saw the face of Ambassador Kellex on the screen. The alien's 4 eyes were wide with fear. "You must come to the council chambers immediately," Kellex said. "The Vorn have made their move." Hyera felt her stomach drop. She had feared this day would come. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 12 years. They were still learning the rules, still trying to understand the complex politics between hundreds of alien species. But everyone knew about the Vorn Dominion. Everyone feared them. She dressed quickly and ran through the empty corridors of the station. Axiom Prime was a massive structure that floated in neutral space. It was home to the Galactic Council, where representatives from all known species gathered to discuss matters of peace and war. Hera had spent 2 years here as Earth's chief diplomat. She had made friends among some species and enemies among others. But nothing had prepared her for what she was about to face. The council chambers were already full when she arrived. Hundreds of aliens sat in their designated areas, their strange bodies and faces turned toward the central platform. Some had scales. Others had fur or feathers. Some breathed different gases and sat inside special containers. But they all had one thing in common tonight. They all looked at Hera with pity in their eyes. High Arbiter Vorath stood at the center of the platform. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and a face that showed no emotion. He had led the council for over 200 years. He had seen species rise and fall. He had watched the Vorn conquer world after world. "The representative from Earth will step forward," Vorath announced. Hyera walked down the long stairs to the platform. She could feel every eye in the chamber following her. When she reached the center, she stood straight and kept her face calm. She would not show fear. Not here. 3 hours ago, the Vorn Dominion sent a formal declaration to this council, Vorath said. His voice echoed through the chamber. They claim that humanity has refused to surrender the resources of their home system. They claim this is an act of aggression. Therefore, they have declared war on the human species. Whispers filled the chamber. Hyera heard words in dozens of languages, but she understood the meaning. The humans were finished. The Vorn had never lost a war. They had conquered 47 species. Some of those species no longer existed. "The Council has discussed this matter," Vorath continued. "We have decided to offer humanity a choice. You may accept protected surrender. You will become a client species of the Council. You will lose your independence, but you will survive. Your people will live." Hera looked around the chamber. She saw Ambassador Kellex in the front row. The alien was shaking her head slowly, begging Hera with her eyes to accept the offer. Kellex had been kind to her. She had helped Hera understand the ways of the galaxy. She did not want to see humanity destroyed, but Hyera had received her orders from Earth before she left her room. The United Council of Earth had already voted. The decision was unanimous. "High Arbiter," Hera said, her voice clear and strong. "I thank the Council for this offer, but I must decline. Earth will not surrender. We will not become servants. We will fight." The chamber exploded with noise. Aliens jumped to their feet. Some shouted in anger, others in disbelief. Hera saw one delegate from a conquered species begin to cry. She understood. They had accepted surrender. They had given up their freedom to live. And now, these foolish humans were throwing their lives away. Vorath raised his hand, and the chamber fell silent. "You understand what you are saying," he said. It was not a question. "The Vorn have 800 warships. They have ground forces that number in the millions. They have never been defeated. Your species is young. You have only been traveling among the stars for a short time. You will be destroyed." "1. Hera nodded. We understand. We under. We under. We understand. Then why? Vorath's face finally showed emotion. It was confusion. Why choose death? Hera thought about how to explain. How could she tell these aliens about human history? How could she describe the thousands of years of war, of struggle, of refusing to kneel? How could she explain that humans would rather die on their feet than live on their knees? Because we are human, she said simply. It is what we do. Ambassador Kellix rushed down to the platform. Her voice was desperate. Please, Hera. You do not know what the Vorn will do to your people. I have seen their work. I have seen worlds burned to ash. Children crying for parents who will never come. Please, accept the surrender. Live. Axide. Thangs were watching. Axide. Hera took Kellix's hand gently. I am sorry, old friend. She turned back to face the full council. She pulled out a small device and pressed a button. I am now transmitting Earth's formal declaration of war to the Vorn Dominion. As of this moment, a state of war exists between humanity and the Vorn. The chamber was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Hera looked at all of them. These species had been in space for thousands of years. They had built great civilizations. They had created wonders that humans could barely understand, but they had also learned to surrender. They had learned to kneel before greater powers. They had forgotten what it meant to fight for their freedom. I have one more thing to say to this council, Hera announced. Many of you think we are fools. Many of you think we are already dead. But I want you to remember something. You have seen many species go to war. You have seen the Vorn crush all who oppose them. But you have never seen humans go to war. She paused and let her words sink in. We are a species born in conflict. We have fought ourselves for all of our history. We have developed weapons that can crack planets. We have strategies written in the blood of billions. We know war. We live war. We breathe war. Hera turned to leave the platform. Then she stopped and looked back at the council one more time. Perhaps it is time you saw what that means. She walked up the stairs and out of the chamber. Behind her, the aliens sat in stunned silence. They did not know what to think. They did not know what to feel. They only knew that something had changed. In her room, Hera finally let herself shake. She sat on her bed and stared at her hands. She had just condemned her entire species to war. Millions would die. Maybe everyone would die. But it was the right choice. She believed that, with all her heart, her device buzzed. It was a message from Admiral Park Do-hyun, the commander of Earth's fleet. It was only 2 words. We're ready. Hera closed her eyes and whispered a prayer for her people. Then she stood up and began to prepare. The war was coming, and humanity would meet it head-on. Somewhere across the galaxy, the Vorn fleet was already moving toward Earth. They expected another easy victory, another species to crush, another world to burn. They had no idea what was coming for them. Admiral Park Do-hyun stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense platform and watched the shipyards burn with activity. Hundreds of vessels moved between the massive construction stations. Sparks flew as workers welded armor plates onto ships that were not yet finished. It was chaos, but it was organized chaos. It was humanity preparing for war. How long do we have? Asked Captain Lee Suman. She stood beside him, her arms crossed over her chest. She was the commander of the battleship, Indomitable, the largest ship in Earth's fleet. She was young for a captain, only 34 years old, but she had earned her position through skill and courage. 3 months, Park replied. Maybe less. The Vorn don't waste time. Suman shook her head. 3 months to prepare for 800 warships. Our entire fleet is less than 300 ships. Half of them are old patrol vessels. We're going to need a miracle. Park turned to face her. Then we'll make our own miracle. We always have. Down on Earth's surface, Colonel Kim Tae-ho addressed his ground forces in a massive assembly hall. 10,000 soldiers sat before him, and millions more watched through video screens around the world. These were the men and women who would defend Earth's cities if the Vorn broke through the fleet. They were the last line of defense. "I'm not going to lie to you," Tae-ho said. His voice was rough from years of shouting orders. "The Vorn are bigger than us, stronger than us. They've conquered species that make us look like children. Every report says we should lose this war." He paused and looked out at the sea of faces. "But those reports don't know humans. They don't know what we're capable of when our backs are against the wall. Our ancestors fought with sticks and stones against animals that could tear them apart. Our history is written in the blood of people who refuse to give up. We are the children of survivors. We are the descendants of fighters." A murmur ran through the crowd. Tae-ho could see the fear in their eyes, starting to transform into something else. Something harder. "The Vorn think they know war," he continued. "They've conquered worlds that barely resisted. They've crushed species that surrendered after the first battle. But they've never faced us. They've never faced a species that has spent its entire existence fighting itself. We have tactics written by generals who fought in mud and blood and fire. We have weapons created by minds that knew true desperation. We know how to hurt. We know how to kill. And we know how to win against impossible odds." In the front row, Sergeant Choi Jinwoo listened to every word. He was a veteran of 15 years. He had fought in conflicts on 3 different planets during humanity's early expansion into space. He knew what combat really looked like. He knew the smell of death and the screams of the wounded. And he knew that Tae-ho was right. Humans were different. They fought differently. They died differently. Later that day, Jinwoo returned to his small apartment in Seoul. His daughter ran to meet him at the door. She was only 8 years old, with her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn chin. Her mother had died 3 years ago in an accident. Jinwoo was all she had left. "Are you going away again?" she asked. Jinwoo knelt down and held her hands. "Yes, little one. I have to go fight." "Will you come back?" He wanted to lie. He wanted to promise her that everything would be fine. But he had never lied to his daughter, and he wouldn't start now. "I will try my hardest," he said. "I will fight with everything I have to come back to you. I promise you that." She hugged him tight, and he closed his eyes. He would keep that promise. He would crawl through fire and blood to keep that promise. In an underground facility beneath the mountains of Norway, Dr. Yoon Hara met with Admiral Park and a team of scientists. They stood before a massive weapon that hummed with contained power. It was called Project Hammer, and it was humanity's secret weapon. "Explain it to me again," Park said. He stared at the device with a mixture of hope and horror. The lead scientist stepped forward. Her name was Dr. Baek Yuna, and she had spent 20 years working on this weapon. "It's based on our old nuclear technology, but far more advanced. When it detonates, it creates a cascade reaction that tears through ship shields and hull armor. Nothing can stop it. Nothing can survive it. And the side effects?" Yuna hesitated. "It's not precise. The blast radius is enormous. Anything nearby will be destroyed, friend or enemy. And the radiation will make the area dangerous for decades." Park closed his eyes. This weapon went against everything he believed in. It was brutal and indiscriminate. It would kill without mercy. But the Vorn were coming to destroy his species. Every man, woman, and child on Earth was counting on him to stop them. Hyera put her hand on his shoulder. "I know what you're feeling," she said quietly. "This isn't the way we wanted to fight. But we didn't choose this war. They did. They want to burn our world and kill our children. We have to use every tool we have." "She's right," Tae-ho said. He had arrived an hour earlier for this meeting. War isn't fair. It isn't clean. We do what we have to do to survive. Park opened his eyes and looked at the weapon. Prepare it, he ordered. But we only use it if we have no other choice. The next 3 months passed like a fever dream. Shipyards worked around the clock. Factories that once made cars and electronics now produced weapons and armor. Civilian ships were torn apart and rebuilt as military vessels. Every resource on Earth was directed toward one goal: survival. Captain Lee Suman trained her crew without mercy. They ran battle drills until they could perform them in their sleep. They studied Vorn tactics and learned their weaknesses. They pushed their bodies and minds to the breaking point, then pushed further. Colonel Kim Tae-ho organized ground forces around the world. He set up defense positions in every major city. He trained civilians to fight, to hide, to survive. He knew that if the Vorn landed on Earth, the battle would be brutal. He wanted his people ready. Sergeant Choi Jinwoo said goodbye to his daughter and shipped out with his unit. They were assigned to defend Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Intelligence said the Vorn would strike there first, to use it as a staging ground for the assault on Earth. And Dr. Yoon Hyera worked day and night on strategy. She studied every war the Vorn had ever fought. She found patterns in their tactics, weaknesses in their formations. She developed a battle plan that was risky and unconventional. It would require perfect timing and incredible courage, but it was their best chance. On the last day before the Vorn arrived, Admiral Park addressed the fleet from the bridge of the defense platform. "Tomorrow, we fight for our homes," he said. "We fight for our families. We fight for every human who has ever lived and every human who will ever be born. The galaxy thinks we're going to die. Let's prove them wrong." That night, long-range sensors detected the Vorn fleet entering human space. 800 warships, coming to burn humanity to ash. Park looked at the sensor display and took a deep breath. Then, he gave the order that would change everything. "All ships to battle stations. The war has begun." The Vorn vanguard emerged from faster-than-light travel near Jupiter like predators entering a hunting ground. 50 warships, each one massive and covered in weapons. They expected to find scared humans running away. They expected easy prey. Instead, they found Captain Lee Suman waiting for them. "Vanguard has arrived," reported her tactical officer. 50 ships. Standard Vorn assault formation. Suman sat in the captain's chair of the Indomitable and studied the enemy on her display. The Vorn ships were ugly things, all sharp angles and dark metal. They looked like weapons themselves. They looked like death. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Let's hear what they have to say." The main screen flickered, and Warlord Dramak's face appeared. He was a Vorn commander, which meant he had killed his way to the top. His skin was dark red, and his eyes were black pools that showed no mercy. A metal plate covered half his face, where someone had once tried to kill him and failed. "Human vessel," Dramak growled. "I am Warlord Dramak, of the Vorn Dominion. You have one chance to surrender. Lay down your weapons and power down your ships. You will be taken as prisoners and processed. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Suman looked at the screen for a long moment. Then she reached out and cut the transmission. "Captain?" her tactical officer asked. "We're done talking," Suman said. "Signal the fleet. Begin attack pattern." The human ships surged forward in formations that would have confused any galactic observer. They didn't line up in neat rows like other species did. They didn't approach in predictable patterns. Instead, they scattered and weaved, coming at the Vorn from multiple angles at once. It was chaos. It was messy. And it was exactly what humans had been doing to each other for thousands of years. "What are they doing?" Dramak demanded. "This makes no tactical sense." His officers had no answer. They had never seen anything like this. The first human missiles struck home. 3 Vorn ships exploded in balls of fire. Then human fighters swarmed out of hidden positions in the asteroid field, attacking from above and below. Railguns opened fire, punching holes through Vorn armor. Dremak's fleet finally responded, but they were confused. They tried to form defensive lines, but the humans refused to engage them head-on. Every time the Vorn set up a formation, the humans broke off and attacked from a different direction. "They fight like animals," one of Dremak's officers said, with disgust. "No," Dremak replied quietly. "They fight like hunters. On Europa's frozen surface, the battle was just as brutal." Vorn dropships had landed troops to capture the moon as a staging base. They expected to crush the human defenders quickly. They were wrong. Colonel Kim Tae-ho commanded the defense from a bunker beneath the ice. He watched his troops engage the Vorn and felt pride burning in his chest. His soldiers were outnumbered 3-1, but they weren't backing down. "Sergeant Choi, report," he ordered over the radio. Jinwoo's voice came back rough and strained. "We're holding Sector 7. They're pushing hard, but we're pushing back. Casualties?" A pause. "Heavy, sir. But we're giving better than we're getting." Jinwoo ended the transmission and turned back to the fight. His squad was pinned down behind a ridge of ice, trading fire with a Vorn assault unit. The aliens were bigger than humans, by almost a meter. Their armor was thick, and their weapons hit hard, but they were also slow. They fought in rigid patterns, doing the same things over and over. Humans didn't fight that way. "Covering fire," Jinwoo shouted. His squad opened up with everything they had. While the Vorn ducked down, Jinwoo grabbed 2 grenades and sprinted along the ridge. He slid down behind the enemy position, armed the grenades, and threw them into the middle of the Vorn unit. The explosion killed 4 of them instantly. Jinwoo was up before the smoke cleared, his rifle firing. He moved and shot, never staying still. The remaining Vorn tried to track him, but he was too fast, too unpredictable. His squad charged in to finish the job. Close quarters combat with Vorn was terrifying. They were strong enough to crush bones with their bare hands, but humans had been fighting hand-to-hand for their entire existence. They knew where to strike, how to move, when to fall back. When the fight was over, Jinwoo stood among the alien bodies and breathed hard. His shoulder was bleeding where a Vorn blade had cut him. 2 of his squad members were dead, but they had won this small battle. They had held their ground. Back in space, the tide was turning against the Vorn vanguard. Suman's unconventional tactics were working. Human ships darted in, struck hard, and pulled back before the Vorn could respond. Decoy drones confused their targeting systems. Sacrificial fighters rammed into enemy weapons platforms. One human cruiser, the Defiant, lost its main weapons to a direct hit. Instead of retreating, the captain ordered full speed ahead and drove his ship directly into a Vorn destroyer. Both ships exploded together. Dremak watched the collision in shock. "They destroyed themselves, just to kill one of our ships. This is madness." But it wasn't madness. It was desperation and courage mixed together. It was what humans did when their backs were against the wall. 2 hours later, the Vorn vanguard was destroyed. All 50 ships, gone. Suman looked at the wreckage and felt nothing. No joy, no satisfaction. Only grief for the ships she had lost. A third of her battle group was gone. Friends she had served with for years were dead. "Send a message to Admiral Park," she ordered. "Vanguard destroyed, awaiting further orders." On Europa, Colonel Tae-ho received reports from across the moon. The Vorn landing force had been stopped. The defenders had held every sector, but the cost was terrible. Thousands dead, more wounded, equipment destroyed. He found Jinwoo helping carry wounded soldiers to the medical station. The sergeant's face was covered in blood and dirt. "Your squad did good work," Tae-ho said. Jinwoo nodded. "We lost 2 young soldiers. Good soldiers. I know. I'm sorry." Jinwoo looked at him with hard eyes. "Don't be sorry, sir. Just make sure their deaths meant something." Far away, in the main Vorn fleet, Warlord Dremak received the news of his vanguard's destruction. He stared at the report for a long time. In all his years of conquest, this had never happened. The vanguard was supposed to soften up the enemy, to show them that resistance was hopeless. Instead, it had been wiped out completely. These humans, he said slowly. They are different. His second-in-command stepped forward. We still have 750 ships. They cannot stand against our full force. No. Dremak agreed. They cannot. But they will try. They will fight to the last ship, the last soldier, the last breath. He turned to his officers. Maximum speed to Earth. We end this now, before they can prepare any more surprises. Back at the Galactic Council, Ambassador Kellix watched the footage of the battle with her mouth open. She saw human ships ramming Vorn destroyers. She saw soldiers charging into close combat against physically superior enemies. She saw a species that refused to die quietly. High Arbiter Vorath stood beside her. I have never seen anything like this, he said quietly. The Vorn have conquered 47 species. None of them fought like this. Kellix remembered what Dr. Yunhaira had said before she left the council chamber. You have never seen humans go to war. Now they had seen it. And it terrified them. In Earth orbit, Admiral Park studied the casualty reports from the first battle. His face showed nothing, but inside he felt like he was dying. So many ships gone. So many good people dead. And this was just the beginning. His aide approached him carefully. Sir, should we reconsider our strategy? Perhaps there's still time to negotiate. Park shook his head slowly. This was just their vanguard. 50 ships. The main fleet has 750. If we couldn't stop them with a full surrender, we certainly can't stop them by begging for mercy after we've bloodied their nose. He turned to face the display showing Earth, his home, billions of people depending on him. No, he said. We've chosen our path. Now, we walk it to the end. Send the order to all forces. Prepare for the main assault. The real war was coming, and humanity would meet it head-on. 750 Vorn warships filled Earth's sky like a storm of steel and fire. Every human who looked up could see them. Dark shapes blocking out the stars, covering the heavens with death. Admiral Park Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the orbital defense platform and watched them come. Behind him, the remains of Earth's fleet gathered for the final battle. They had reinforced after the first fight, pulled in every ship that could fly and fight, but they were still outnumbered more than 2-1. Admiral, his communications officer said. Incoming transmission from the Vorn flagship. Put it through. Warlord Dremak's face appeared on the main screen. His black eyes burned with cold fury. He had never lost a vanguard before. He wanted revenge. Admiral Park, Dremak growled. Your species has caused me great annoyance, but it ends now. Surrender immediately, and I will only destroy your military. Resist, and I will burn your world until nothing lives. Every city will become ash. Every man, woman, and child will die screaming. Park stared at the screen. He thought about his family and soul, his wife, his grandchildren, all of them looking up at the sky right now, waiting to see what would happen. Warlord Dremak, Park replied. I have a counteroffer. Turn your fleet around and leave human space. If you do this, we will let you go in peace. Refuse, and we will destroy you. Dremak laughed. It was an ugly sound. You threaten me? With your broken fleet? You are insects. I will enjoy crushing you. Park leaned forward. You know, that's what I thought you'd say. He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. Open a channel to all Earth forces. His voice went out across the solar system. To the ships in orbit. To the soldiers on the ground. To every human who could hear him. This is Admiral Park Do-hyun. The enemy is here. They think we will break. They think we will surrender. They are wrong. He paused, letting his words sink in. We are the descendants of people who crossed oceans in wooden boats. We are the children of those who survived plagues and wars and disasters that should have killed us all. Our history is written in the blood of survivors. We do not quit. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. Across the fleet, soldiers and sailors straightened their backs. In the cities below, civilians felt courage rising in their chests. This was it. The moment everything would be decided. We may not all survive this day, Park continued. But those who come after us will know what we did here. They will know that when the darkness came for humanity, we stood up and faced it. We fought back. We were not afraid. He took a breath. All ships, attack formation. Give them everything we have. For Earth, for humanity. The human fleet surged forward to meet the Vorn Armada. Captain Lee Suman led the assault from the bridge of the Indomitable. Her ship had been repaired after the first battle, but it still bore scars. That was fine. She had scars too. Target the lead destroyers, she ordered. Break their formation before they can establish firing lines. Human ships cut through space like wolves attacking a herd. They struck at the edges of the Vorn fleet, pulling ships out of position, forcing them to chase. It was the same tactics as before, chaos and speed and aggression. But this time, the Vorn were ready. Dramak had studied the footage from the Vanguard battle. He had learned. Hold formation, he commanded. Let them come, then crush them. The Vorn fleet became a wall of guns. Human ships that got too close were ripped apart by concentrated fire. Suman watched 3 cruisers disappear in explosions. Then 4 more. Then 10. We're losing too many ships, her tactical officer said. At this rate, we won't last an hour. Suman gritted her teeth. Then we make every minute count. Above Earth, the orbital defense platform Sentinel unleashed everything it had. Railguns fired massive slugs at thousands of meters per second. Missile batteries launched swarms of warheads. Energy weapons carved beams of destruction through space. Vorn ships began to die. Not enough. Not nearly enough. But some. On the ground, the first Vorn dropships broke through Earth's atmosphere. They landed troops in cities around the world. Colonel Kim Tae-ho coordinated the global defense from his command center. But it was chaos. Too many fronts. Too many enemies. Sergeant Choi Jinwoo fought in the streets of Seoul, his city, his home. Vorn soldiers advanced through the rubble, killing everything in their path. Civilians ran screaming. Buildings collapsed from weapons fire. Jinwoo's squad held a barricade at a major intersection. They had been fighting for hours. Half his soldiers were dead or wounded. His ammunition was running low. But he would not retreat. Not from his home. "Sergeant," one of his soldiers shouted. "They're flanking us." Jinwoo looked and saw Vorn troops coming from a side street. He grabbed his last grenade and ran toward them. A weapon blast hit him in the leg, and he fell hard. Pain exploded through his body. He could feel blood soaking his uniform, but he kept crawling. He armed the grenade and threw it with all his remaining strength. The explosion killed the flanking unit. His squad used the opening to fall back to a new position, carrying Jinwoo with them. In orbit, things were getting worse. The human fleet was being torn apart. Ships died by the dozen. The Vorn Armada pushed closer and closer to Earth. Admiral Park watched the battle display and saw defeat coming. They had fought with everything they had, but it wasn't enough. The Vorn were too many, too strong. "Sir," his aide said quietly, "Project Hammer is ready." Park closed his eyes. He had hoped to avoid this. He had prayed for another way. But there was no other way. If he didn't use the weapon, Earth would fall. He opened his eyes. Prepare to launch. In the middle of the battle, Captain Suman's ship took a critical hit. The Indomitable shuddered as explosions ripped through its hull. Fire and smoke filled the corridors. Her tactical officer died at his station. Damage report, she ordered. Engines failing. Weapons at 30%. We're losing life support. Suman looked at the Vorn flagship on her display. Dremok's personal ship. The heart of the enemy fleet. If they could destroy it, the whole armada might fall apart. She made her decision. All hands, abandon ship, she announced. Get to the escape pods. Now. Captain? Her helmsman stared at her. What about you? I'm staying. She began plotting a collision course. Someone needs to fly this ship into that flagship. Someone needs to give Admiral Park time to use the weapon. Her crew refused to move. They looked at her with tears in their eyes. Captain, we can stay. No. Her voice was firm. You've followed me into hell. Now follow me one more time and get off this ship. That's an order. They obeyed. Slowly, painfully, they left the bridge. She opened a channel to Admiral Park. Admiral, I'm making a run at the flagship. When I hit them, use that weapon. Park's voice came back strained. Suman, there has to be another way. There isn't. You know there isn't. She could see the Vorn flagship growing larger on her screen. It's been an honor, sir. She cut the transmission and pushed the engines to full power. The Indomitable groaned and screamed as it accelerated toward the enemy. Warlord Dramak saw her coming. Shoot that ship down, he roared. Every gun on his flagship opened fire. Explosions tore chunks off the Indomitable. But it kept coming. Burning and breaking apart, but still coming. Suman sat in her chair and watched death approach. She thought about her parents, her friends, her crew. She thought about Earth below her, full of people she would never meet. For Earth, she whispered. For everyone who comes after. The Indomitable struck the Vorn flagship at full speed. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from Earth's surface. Both ships were destroyed instantly. Dramak was dead, and Admiral Park gave the order that would change everything. Launch Project Hammer. Project Hammer launched from hidden platforms across Earth's orbit. Dozens of warheads streaked toward the Vorn fleet, like the wrath of an angry god. The Vorn tried to shoot them down. They tried to run, but the weapons were too fast, and there were too many of them. The detonations came all at once. Light filled space. Energy waves tore through Vorn shields like they were paper. Hull armor melted and vaporized. Ships that had conquered 47 species broke apart in seconds. 300 Vorn warships died in the first moment. Then 100 more, as the cascade effect spread through the fleet. Explosions triggered explosions. Reactors overloaded. Ammunition cooked off. It was over in minutes. The surviving Vorn ships broke and ran. For the first time in their history, the Vorn Dominion retreated from a battle. They fled human space at maximum speed, leaving behind the wreckage of their greatest fleet. Silence fell over Earth orbit. The human defenders stared at their displays in disbelief. They had won. Against all odds, against everything the galaxy believed, they had won. But the cost was terrible. Admiral Park looked at the casualty reports and felt his heart breaking. 2/3 of the human fleet was destroyed. Millions of soldiers dead. Cities on Earth in ruins. Captain Lee Suman, who he had known since she was a young officer, was gone. The weapon had worked. But the radiation would make parts of Earth orbit dangerous for decades. Ships would have to avoid those areas. Future generations would pay the price for this victory. Admiral, his aide said softly, we've received messages from around the world. People want to thank you. They're calling you a hero. Park shook his head. Heroes don't send their friends to die. Heroes don't use weapons that poison space. He stood up slowly. I just did what had to be done. That's all. He left the bridge and walked alone through the station. He needed to see Earth. He needed to remind himself what he had fought for. When he reached the observation deck, he stood at the window and looked down at his home. The planet was scarred. Smoke rose from burning cities. But it was still there, still alive, still human. He thought about Suman and all the others who had given their lives. He thought about the young soldiers who would never go home. He thought about the families who were waking up right now to learn that their loved ones were gone, and he cried. Quietly, privately, he let himself grieve for everything they had lost. On Earth's surface, Sergeant Choi Jin-woo lay in a hospital bed in Seoul. His leg was badly damaged. The doctors said he might never walk properly again. But he was alive. His daughter came to see him. She ran into the room and threw her arms around him, crying into his chest. "You came back," she sobbed. "You promised, and you came back." Jinwoo held her tight. Tears ran down his face. "I told you I would try." He thought about the soldiers in his squad who had died. The ones who wouldn't get to hold their children again. He swore silently that he would honor their memory. He would live his life well. For them. Colonel Kim Tae-ho walked through the ruins of downtown Seoul. Buildings were collapsed. Bodies still lay in the streets, waiting to be collected. The smell of smoke and death was everywhere. He found a little girl sitting alone by a pile of rubble. She was holding a toy that was burned and broken. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. She looked up at him with empty eyes. "My mom is under there. She won't come out." Tae-ho knelt beside her. He didn't know what to say. There were no words that could fix this. So he just sat with her and held her hand while rescue workers came to help. This was the cost of war. Not just soldiers dying, but children crying. Families destroyed. Lives shattered. Tae-ho had known this before the fighting started, but knowing it and seeing it were different things. At the Galactic Council, the reaction to humanity's victory was mixed. Some species were amazed. They had never seen anyone defeat the Vorn. They looked at humans with new respect, but others were afraid. They had seen the footage of Project Hammer. They had seen what human weapons could do. A species that could defeat the Vorn was a species that could conquer the galaxy. High Arbiter Voreth called an emergency session. Ambassador Kellix attended, still shaking from what she had witnessed. "The humans have done what no one else could do," Voreth announced. "They have broken the Vorn. But we must now consider what this means for the future of the galaxy." A delegate from one of the older species stood up. "It means we should destroy them now, while we still can, before they become a threat to all of us." Kellix jumped to her feet. "That's madness. They just saved the galaxy from the Vorn." "They saved themselves," the delegate replied, "and they used weapons of terrible destruction to do it. What happens when they decide to turn those weapons on us?" The debate raged for hours. Some wanted to welcome humanity as heroes. Others wanted to form a coalition to eliminate them before it was too late. In the end, they reached no decision. They were too afraid to attack humanity, and too afraid to embrace them. So they did nothing, and waited to see what the humans would do next. Dr. Yoon Hyera returned to Axiom Prime to address the council one more time. She stood at the central platform, just like she had 3 months ago, when she declared war. "I know many of you fear us now," she said. "I know you look at what we did and see monsters. But I want you to understand something." She paused and looked around at the hundreds of alien faces watching her. "We did not start this war. We asked for peace. We were refused. We were told to surrender or die. So we fought back. We used every weapon we had, because we had no choice. When someone comes to destroy everything you love, you don't fight fair. You fight to win." The chamber was silent. "Humanity does not want to conquer the galaxy," Hyera continued. "We want to live in peace. We want to trade and explore and learn. But we will not be threatened. We will not be bullied. We will not kneel." She stood tall and proud. "If you treat us with respect, we will be the best friends you have ever had. But if you come for us, we will be the worst enemy you can imagine." She left the platform and walked out of the chamber. She did not look back. Admiral Park met with her when she returned to Earth. They stood together on the observation deck of the rebuilt defense platform and looked at the stars. "The Council fears us now," Hera said. "Some of them want to destroy us." Park nodded slowly. "Then we need to make sure they can't. We need to be strong enough that no one ever thinks about attacking us again. You want to keep building weapons? After everything we just went through? I want to protect our people. If that means building more ships and stronger weapons, then yes." He turned to face her. "We didn't choose to be dangerous. The galaxy made us this way. We showed them who we are when our backs were against the wall. Now they know. Now everyone knows." Outside the window, construction ships were already working on new orbital platforms. Shipyards were being rebuilt. Bigger than before. Humanity was not waiting to see if someone else would attack them. They were preparing. At the edge of human space, Ambassador Kellix met Hera one last time. They stood on a small station between stars, far from anyone who might listen. "What will you do now?" Kellix asked. Hera looked out at the galaxy. Billions of stars. Countless worlds. Infinite possibilities. "We'll do what we've always done," she said. "Survive. Adapt. Grow. We'll explore and discover and build. We'll make allies where we can, and prepare for enemies where we must. And if someone threatens you again?" Hera smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Then we'll go to war, and we'll show them the same thing we showed the Vorn." Kellix shivered. She remembered the footage of Project Hammer. The ships burning. The death. "What did you show them?" Hera turned to face her old friend. Her eyes were hard and bright. "That humans are not prey. We are predators, and the galaxy should never forget it." She walked back to her ship and left Kellix alone among the stars. The ambassador watched her go and thought about everything she had seen. Humanity had proven themselves. They had bled and died and sacrificed. They had used terrible weapons and lost good people. But they had survived. And now the galaxy would have to live with them. Far away, in the ruins of the Vorn Dominion, the survivors rebuilt and plotted revenge. But they were afraid. For the first time in their history, they knew fear. Because somewhere in the galaxy, the humans were waiting. And if the Vorn ever came for them again, humanity would be ready. They would always be ready.